You don't actually think that I would sleep through my days off, do you? For me, when you're considering your sleep schedule on a day off when working nights, I think you've got three options. The first is you do the right thing by the Sleep Foundation and from sleep experts like Matthew Walker, who I've recently finished his book and it was excellent, where they recommend to stay on a night shift schedule all the time, regardless of how many days off you've got. If you work the night shift consistently, you need to stay on that schedule. Now, the second option I think you've got is to completely disregard their advice and to flip back to a day shift schedule as quickly as you can and try to resume some sort of normal life, as normal as possible. The third option is what I like to call the hybrid sleep method, where I think you get the best of both worlds. You get to sleep and you also get to play. We'll talk about this option very shortly. So let's dive into these three options. We'll talk about the pros and cons of each, plus a couple of handy tips to keep you happy and sane depending on what sleep schedule you choose. So if we look at option number one, which is sticking to our night shift schedule when you're on a day off. Now, why would you want to do this? I guess the pros of this is your body loves it. Our body and our circadian rhythm is obsessed with routine. It wants to know what to expect because it wants us to get that 7 to 8, 9 hours sleep. Our moods are better, our overall health is better, and we're at a decreased risk of getting bad things like diabetes and heart disease. So we're just healthier when we sleep more. So that's probably the biggest thing. Second big positive here is not only your body gets to find a routine, but so does your family. You might be able to take the kids to school while your partner goes to work. And then when you wake up in the afternoon, they might be able to go and do some exercise while you cook the kids dinner and spend some time with them. If you don't have kids, it also might work really well for you as a couple, or you just really might like the night shift routine and it works well for you. Now, I probably don't need to point out the obvious challenges of staying on this schedule, but just for the heck of it, socially, it can be challenging to stay connected with those in your inner circle. It can be much harder to get the recommended amount of vitamin D, which is the sunlight vitamin that's really good for our muscles and our bones. And the third challenge doesn't necessarily involve us, but more the people who we live with, because they have to stay quiet and can't do the jobs that they normally would do in the day because we're sleeping. Now, this can cause some relationship strain, which I've talked about in another video, which I'll link in the description below this one. Now, if you are going to stick to the night shift schedule on your day off, you are a special valued member of our shift working community. So firstly, thank you for everything you're doing. But as a tip here, if you are going to stay on this routine, you have to keep yourself busy. When you get to midnight, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock on your days off, you're not at work, your family are asleep, your friends are asleep. What the heck are you meant to do? Now, it's easy to spend all your money on internet shopping or to get caught up in drinking too much and just watching Netflix. But is there something better you could be doing? A few things to think about is night fishing. Can you find a 24-hour gym? Could you do some research into the stock market and even maybe consider cryptocurrency? Can you play disc golf? Can you take an online drawing class? There are lots of great options out there unique to those who work the night shift schedule. So jump on Google and have a little look and see what tickles your fancy, because I think you can still be productive, learn something new, and feel like you're achieving something even when you're working the night shift schedule and you don't see daylight very much. If you're enjoying this video so far, I'd really appreciate if you could tap that little like icon. It really means a lot. Now, the second option you may consider adopting is to disregard all the advice we just heard from the Sleep Foundation and the sleep professionals, and that is to just switch back to the day shift schedule and to try and live a normal, relatively normal life. Now, the most obvious advantage here is seeing your friends and family, getting to actually spend quality time with those that you love. In the creation of this video, I initially said that you can go to restaurants, you can go to ATMs, you can go to dry cleaners, and you can do all these things now that you're working during the day. But in retrospect, we live a 24-hour society, so even as a night shift worker, you can probably still do these things. So I think the major advantage of staying awake during your days off is that social interaction and being on the same sleep schedule as those who you care about. But the obvious downside here is that you may be a zombie or half asleep when you're doing these things. So even though you're present with your friends and family, are you really present up here, or are you just in the room staring blankly into space? So I think you'd probably agree that if you are going to switch to the day shift schedule, you want to do this quickly, right? We've got a video that explores a lot of techniques on how to actually do this, so I won't cover it in this video, but I highly recommend you check that one out. Now, the third and final option that you don't hear many people talk about is this hybrid sleep method I mentioned earlier. Yes, I did make the name up. So with this method, you come home from work as normal. But instead of sleeping all day, you set your alarm to wake you up at around midday. So around sort of 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 1:30 at the absolute latest. When you wake up, you're going to feel really groggy and like you've been hit by a bus, but just stick with it. It's for good reason. Then stay awake all day and then pretty much all night. And then you go to sleep at about 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. You then have a really solid sleep until about lunchtime the next day. Now, it's going to feel really rough when you first do this, and is why I wore my happy jacket to keep you motivated. But after you've got into this routine until you transition back onto nights, it can work really well. We really like this method because it allows you to still spend time with your friends and family and those you love, whilst not drastically adjusting your body clock and making it realign itself constantly. Now, out of these 3 sleep options, which one sounds more like you? Let me know in the comments below this video. Now, for the rotational shift workers watching this, you probably don't have a choice about what you're going to do. You have to switch. So if you're a rotational shift worker, the next video I think you should watch is just here.